Okay, here we go. So streaming is confusing. I linked to what I thought was like a reliable YouTube stream link for my channel, which is youtube.com/adamwathan/live. But when I started live streaming, it didn't actually update that URL. It just created some random URL and never made that live one actually point to the new one. So that's kind of weird. But what can you do? So hopefully everyone who clicked the link in Twitter finds their way over to the real stream. I'm going to just tweet it out for real here so people can see it. So we'll just say live now. Link changed. We'll throw the old thinking dude in there. Okay, so some backstory. Basically, so we make this Tailwind UI product, right? A bunch of you have probably seen with a bunch of kind of pre-built Tailwind components, and I think it's pretty cool. But there's a lot of components that require JavaScript to work. So if you go to like dropdowns, these require JavaScript to work, and implementing these in like a really bulletproof way is not as easy as it sounds. There's a lot of work that you have to do with keyboard navigation and stuff like that to get things working accessibly. So what I decided would be a good thing to explore is trying to figure out how can we give people working versions of these components that work with JavaScript in the framework that they already use, without making them like go to this code tab and copy like a disastrous amount of JavaScript. Because right now you can see like it's just comments. We just say, here's the transitions you should use. Make sure you show or hide this based on the state. Just so the search bar on Tailwind UI is just Command K. One day we'll put like a button or a link for it or something, but I haven't finished making this properly accessible. So like up and down works a little bit, but it doesn't work with like the ARIA roles and stuff like that. So it's better than nothing, but it's not perfect. So I'm trying not to advertise it too much in the UI yet until it's fully baked. Anyways, I've been trying to figure out a way to provide some sort of baseline interactive components that people can use with Tailwind UI components so that they don't have to worry about writing all that crazy JavaScript stuff themselves. The Popper.js stuff, I'm not planning to handle that immediately, but something that we could also tackle in the future. Anyways, so all that said, what I have decided to do is build a Vue library and a React library and hopefully an Alpine library, as long as Caleb can finish this feature that I need him to finish to make it possible. At least to start, for those three libraries, where we can take like common UI behaviors like list boxes, toggles, modals, stuff like that, and provide primitives for those that make it really easy to kind of encapsulate all the complex behavior behind kind of this black box, but still let you fully customize the markup and fully customize the styles, which is an interesting challenge because, as you've probably seen, most libraries that are like a pre-built custom select menu end up being really hard to customize. So I've built one so far. I just kind of started on this week. I started with custom select menus, which are called list boxes in like the ARIA world. And I've done it just in Vue, and I'm pretty happy with the API. So I wanted to do a little stream here today where we try and consume it. So we'll use it as if we're like a user of the library who doesn't need to know about the internals. And we'll just kind of walk through how it works. So totally unrehearsed. We'll just figure this out as we go, come up with some cool ideas for data and stuff like that. Basically, to start, then we need to import some components. So there's a bunch of components that we get from this file that right now I think is just components/listbox.js, something like that. Yeah. So we're going to need to import the listbox itself, the listbox label, the listbox button, listbox list, and listbox option. I also have this listbox popover or pop-up. I don't think I'm actually going to end up shipping that. I think I have a kind of a better way to do that. So we've imported these kind of 5 components, and these all work together to create these custom selects. So let's register these components with Vue. And again, I'm going to build React versions of this too, and they're all going to have the same API as much as possible. So we've got these components supported. Let's start by setting up some data. So the way that this component works is very much like any other form control in Vue. So you know how in Vue you have like an input with vModel on it, and it just kind of stays synchronized, or a radio button, or a select menu, whatever. This is meant to work the exact same way. So it's what they call in React a controlled component. So the state in terms of like what is selected and what the options are, those are going to live in our parent component here. And the internal state of the component is just worried about the interactions and stuff like that. So we're just going to do this sort of like data down, events up sort of approach to synchronizing this data. Framework free. There's no such thing as building these framework free unless you want to blow your head off. Alpine will be like the framework free option in my mind. Even like what I've written here with Vue, it's 400 lines of code for the Vue version. And think about how much Vue is actually doing for me. So if I was going to give you a framework free version of this, it'd probably be like 2,000 lines of code, which is outrageous and not even productive. Use a framework. Use Vue, React, Angular, something. Alpine is awesome if you're not a framework person. I don't believe web components can even work for this, because as far as I understand, web components don't really do well with slots and stuff like that. So, and that's totally required to make this stuff work. So we'll see. If someone can convince me that web components make sense, I'd be interested to see it. But everything I've read about them makes it sound like rather than working with every framework, they just work with no framework. So anyways, we got this stuff. Let's set up some data. So we'll have a data function here. Let's return let's think of, this is always fun coming up with some sort of like domain. One that I thought of was like pro wrestlers, because I love wrestling. Well, as a kid I did anyways. So let's do like something like this. We do like a selected wrestler, and then we'll have like wrestlers, and we'll make an array of wrestlers here. So let's think of some wrestler names. So there we go. Stone Cold Steve Austin. Someone suggested, basically. Let's do Bret Hart, because he gave me a Tailwind shout out for my birthday a couple years ago. Let's do Ric Flair, who gave Taylor a shout out for his birthday yesterday. Maybe we'll do a Macho Man Randy Savage. Maybe we'll do Jake the Snake Roberts. Maybe we'll do The Undertaker. Hulk Hogan. Oh, can't forget Hulk Hogan. Let's try and get like 15 or 20 in here. Rikishi. Okay, we're going to a different era here. I'll take Rikishi. John Cena. Okay, we're going even more modern. All right, keep throwing them at me. Shawn Michaels I see in there. All right, who else? British Bulldog. Okay, yes. Superfly Jimmy Snuka. Okay. Superfly Jimmy Snuka. Triple X. Ooh. The Ultimate Warrior. Andre the Giant. Doink the Clown. All right, this will be enough for now. Especially because it'd be kind of fun to get images for all these people, and I think that's going to be not possible. Okay, so we've got this list of names. These are all unique, so we can just kind of roll with this as a first step. So why don't we pre-select like Hulk Hogan? He'll be kind of like the default selected wrestler. Pro wrestling is unfortunately a very male-dominated area. I guess there's a lot more women wrestling these days, though. But I don't really keep up with it now, so I don't know any of their names. Back in my day, it was like the only chicks that even showed up were like Mae Young when she got like power bombed by the Dudley Boys, like crazy stuff like that, or like Trish Stratus. They weren't really wrestlers like they are now. I know now they have like some really athletic women doing lots of crazy stuff, which is cool. But back in the day, it was not as diverse as it is today. All right. We could do a placeholder and we could do the pre-selected. Remind me about that and we'll make that work. Okay, so we got our data set up. Let's make a list box. So what we do to start is we kind of create our root list box component, and we're going to do a v model on selected wrestler. Okay. Then we're going to do a list box label, which renders nothing but a span, so we can do whatever we want here. We can be like, you know, selected wrestler, and then we'll do a list box button. It's annoying that these don't autocomplete that well. And in here, we're just going to put like the selected wrestler name, probably. And then we're going to have a list box list. And inside the list box list, we're going to have a bunch of list box options. So we're going to do like a v4 of wrestler in wrestlers. Woo. And we'll just use like the wrestler name here. And each option also needs to have a value so that the list box knows like what the values are. Think of it just like a regular old HTML select menu. So let's just do value is wrestler. And we don't need this for the purposes of this library, but Vue will complain if we don't have keys. Okay, so we've got this, right? This looks terrible, right? It's completely unstyled. But check it out. Like I can go ahead and like click John Cena or the British Bulldog or, you know, all these people, and it is working. If I hit down and hit enter, that's Rikishi. You know, if I hit down, enter, that's Shawn Michaels. So things are working, but we just have no styling or anything. So let's start with a couple things. I never use apply ever. I don't think anyone should use apply with Tailwind if you can avoid it. It sucks. It's a gateway drug feature to trick people into using Tailwind, and when they start using Tailwind, they realize that they don't actually need it. Personally, I do not care about the markup getting bigger at all. I'd rather a big string of HTML where I can actually see what I'm doing than having to jump between all sorts of files all the time. Okay, so we got a list box. We don't need to do any styling on this, but maybe what we should do first is hide the list box list unless the list box is open. So I considered baking this right into the library, but the problem is with Vue, there's multiple ways to show and hide things, right? Some people like to use vShow, some people like to use vIf. There's reasons to use one or the other depending on context. And some people might want to do transitions. Some people might want to not do transitions. So what I determined kind of the easiest approach is to just expose the open state through a slot, and then you can just do whatever you want if it's open. So let's just say here we'll only show the list if it's open. All right, so now it's not open. We click Shawn Michaels, then we click British Bulldog, it closes. So, you know, it's working better. These focus styles, by the way, the new default Chrome focus styles, I like them better than the old ones. All right. So we got that opening now. What about the label? Why don't we just use this label just for screen readers? Let's hide it. Okay, now the label's gone. This is, again, just like vanilla Tailwind stuff, right? Okay, what about the button? Let's make this button kind of look cool. We'll do like rounded, px3, py2, border, gray 200 or something, maybe 300. Yeah, okay, that's sensible. Maybe, let's make it like a width full, and we'll do it like a inline. Let's do width full. Okay, so I've got this container here with like a max width on it. So you can see like that's why we're getting this big button. Let's do text left. All right, and let's add like an icon. Let's go to Heroicons. And we could do like I think there's two good ones. There's like the selector icon, and there's also like chevron down. So maybe let's just use a chevron. We'll slam that in here. And we'll do like a class of H5W5 text gray 400, something like that. Okay, so there's a chevron. So let's make this inline flex items center and justify between, I guess. Like, really, this chevron should be like an absolute positioned thing, but for our purposes, like, this is pretty good, right? Okay, so we've got this button. It opens the dropdown now. We can click an item in the dropdown, and that totally works. Now, what about, let's do a little bit more styling. And then we'll worry about keyboard navigation and stuff. So this list thing looks ugly. So let's improve that. So we'll just do like focus outline none. So at least when it's open, we don't get this like ugly outline. And instead we'll kind of style it ourselves. So why don't we start by giving it like a shadow, maybe like a rounded MD or something like that. And why don't we just set the V show here to true for a second so that we can, oh my goodness. Why is ESLint giving us problems here? Do I need to do like an ESLint disable in a template too? Is that like a thing? ESLint, you're killing me. I used like the default Vue CLI template when I made this, and it has this really aggressive ESLint stuff set up where even if there's like the smallest warning, it doesn't even show your stuff. I have ESLint disable here. I know I can remove the V slot, but that doesn't get rid of the stuff. I mean, okay, let's try putting it up here. I'm pretty sure this is just going to fail though, because like that's not even, yeah, it doesn't care. I just want this gone. Okay, that's amazing. Okay, so there we go. There's our solution. We'll just disable it for the whole file using an HTML comment. So that's probably fine. All right, cool. That's what I wanted. All right. So we got a little bit of a shadow on there. That's kind of cool. Let's do some padding on the options maybe. So we'll say like PX. Well, maybe we'll match like what we had for the thing above. Like that sort of thing. And maybe on this whole thing, we'll do a little bit of padding too, like a PY1. All right, and we could do a border on this too, I guess. And let's position it a little bit farther away. So first of all, let's do position absolute. And we'll do like position relative on this. And we'll make this width full. And we'll go like MT2 or something, so there's a little bit of space. Okay, so let's go back to isOpen here. When there's enough space in the viewport, like again, you just have to decide what to do there. There's a threshold between handling as much behavior as possible and like giving you control. Many UIs will try and dynamically show the dropdown either above or below, depending on how much room there is in the viewport. You can use a library like Popper.js for that, which I might bake into it at some point. But for V1, I'm keeping the sort of line of like what we handle versus what you should handle like a little bit lower so that we can put out something and then continue to improve on it. All right, so like this is a really long list, right? Which is probably too long. So why don't we give it like a max height of like, I don't know, what's this do? Let's go back to forcing this open. Okay, so max height 32 is probably not enough. Maybe like 56 or something. I mean, like that's sensible for a list box, I think. What's 56? It kind of cuts off the Undertaker. Ideally you want to get something that sort of looks like it cuts off half of a word, you know, so you can tell that there's more options. So 56 is probably pretty good. You can see like the T and U are going to be poking through, so people are going to know that it's scrollable. And then we'll just do like overflow Y auto. All right, so now we got like a scrollable container here. Okay. All right, and we have it forced to open, so let's just set it to isOpen here. You can do custom scroll bars if you want. Again, that's styling related, right? And this library is completely styleless. And maybe we'll introduce custom scroll bars as a Tailwind feature at some point. Okay, so anyways, we got this select menu kind of working now. So let's do some other cool stuff with it. So why don't we try doing something like for the selected item, maybe we'll put like a check mark next to it. So let's get a check. And in the list box option, I'm going to add an SVG here for the check mark. We'll say like H5W5 text gray 700 or something. I don't know. This is totally arbitrary. Okay, so now you see we've got these like check marks for everyone. Now we don't want check marks for everyone. We only want check marks for the people who actually should have check marks, right? So let's make this like relative. We'll make this absolute, or let's do a span. Span, come on. Emmet, span, tab. No, programs don't work. I don't know if you guys knew that, but most software is just bad. All right, absolute, inset y 0, right 0, flex, item center. All right, so now we got check marks over on the right there. Let's do a little bit of padding on the right, maybe like PR2. All right, so now we've got like a check mark on the right, but it's there for every single one. We only want it there for the actual selected one, right? So how do we know that it's selected? So you might think, well, one way that we could do that is to just do a vShow. We could say if wrestler triple equals selected wrestler, then we'll show it, right? And yeah, that does work, and that's fine. But I've created an API that I think is a little more declarative even. So just like we have a slot up here that tells us if the thing is open, we also have a slot here that can tell us, is this the selected item? Because the dropdown knows all that information, right? So we can just say vShow is selected. Yeah, now that it's selected, we get the check mark. If I click Macho Man, now Macho Man has the check mark. If I click Superfly, Superfly's got the check mark. Okay, pretty cool. Now what about like when you're hovering over it with the mouse and you want it to like change a little bit? Say we wanted to style that. How could we do it? One way that we could do it is by using a dynamic class. So basically we want to say, well, actually here we go. Here's an interesting approach, right? Say we do like hover BG blue 600, hover text white. This is gonna like, you're going to think, okay, this like mostly gets us there, right? But if I hover and then start using the keyboard, it doesn't work. Right now, I actually have Ultimate Warrior selected, but you'd never know that. You know, here if I hit down, down, I'm on Doink the Clown, but he's not selected. It looks like I'm about to select the British Bulldog, but if I hit enter, Doink the Clown is selected. So hover is like a very naive solution for this. We actually have a more abstract concept at play, which is which one of these items currently is like active based on either mouse action or keyboard action. So rather than doing it this way, what we can do is we can destructure another piece of data out of the option, which is whether this is the currently active option, active in the sense of whether it's highlighted. And then we can just do a dynamic class binding where we can say, we want to do BG blue 600 text white if it's active. I'll add multi-select support eventually, for sure. Right now it doesn't support it. Again, it's just been like a couple days of getting something together that I felt happy with and spiking at the API and stuff. All right, so now that we open this, you can see, why is it not working? We've goofed something up. Okay, we got some errors. Property or method is active, is not defined. Oh, all right. I remember. So there's this thing with Vue where as of Vue 2.6 or something, you can put the vSlot declaration on the root component instance, but you can't actually access it on the root component instance. You can only access it on children. So we have to do like this little trick here where we make a div, we move everything into the div, and then we'll get rid of basically these declarations and move them to the div. And now it should work. Okay. So now if we open it up, oh, you can see Hulk Hogan is already selected because he was the selected item. So by default, that's the first one that's active. Now if I do my hovering, oh, interesting. They all hover. Now if I hover and then start using the keyboard, oh, and look at that. It even auto scrolls the right option into view as I'm doing it. It's just magically working. And all I had to do was say, these are the styles I want if it's active. So that is pretty cool in my opinion. So now what about the check mark? See how the check mark is kind of like an ugly color right now? Well, if we wanted that to also change color, we could just get rid of the gray 700 here, do a dynamic class binding, and we could just say, so we'll do text gray 700 if it's not active, so not as active, and then maybe we'll do text white if it is active. So now, yeah, you can see the check mark's white, and then it switches back to dark gray. And I'm doing all this with a keyboard, which is pretty cool, right? Pretty cool. And that's like basically all you need. And this is like beautifully accessible too. So check this out. If we look here, you'll see here's the button, and you have ARIA expanded true, right? Because it's open. When I highlight Ric Flair, let's see. Yeah, okay, so we got Bret Hart selected. You can see the active descendant is Tailwind UI listbox ID 21. These are like automatically generated IDs for each one, and that has ARIA selected true, right? As I hover over, as I choose Macho Man, you'll see that switches to ARIA selected true. So all this stuff is working perfectly. If I was to like switch on VoiceOver, all right.
Welcome to VoiceOver.
So you won't be able to hear it, but you'll be able to
VoiceOver
see
on system preferences.
here, right?
Chrome, Vue2, Google, selected wrestler, Jake the Snake Roberts.
So I can hear him like saying selected wrestler, Jake the Snake Roberts in my headphones.
Jake the Snake Robert, Macho Man, Ric Flair, Bret Hart, Stone Cold, Doink the Bret, Ric, the Hulk, selected wrestler,
right?
Hulk Hogan.
So that's pretty cool. So it's
VoiceOver
like
off.
Perfectly accessible. Oh, you can hear it? That's cool. So that means that Ecamm Live is automatically doing the system audio. So that's sweet. Yeah, so this is pretty cool. I'm pretty happy with like how this works. Now say we want to do like a transition so that like when we close it, maybe it fades out. Originally, I was experimenting with building an API for transitions directly into the listbox list, but for the same reasons of like vShow versus vIf and all that stuff, it just ended up feeling a little inflexible. By getting rid of all that stuff, now you can just use a regular old view transition object or component. And now we can just do like enter active class, or let's just fade out. I've been studying a lot of UIs, like good ones like Mac OS and stuff, to see what they're doing for animations, and most things open instantly and then leave a little bit more gracefully. So we'll do like leave active class, transition or duration. Say like 300 is going to be slow, but it might be easier to see on the stream. So then we'll do like leave class, which is like what we're starting at. So we'll start at opacity 100, then leave to class, we'll go to opacity 0. So with any luck, this should just fade out now when I click stuff. Yep, fades out. So that's pretty sweet, right? And now you can see we have this like pointer or this regular default cursor here. We can of course like do whatever we want. So we can just say cursor default. We can even say like select none. And now you can't select the text, so it behaves more like a regular dropdown now. So another thing is like this button here, we could do some focus styles on it, right? So say we did focus outline none, focus border blue 300, focus shadow outline blue. This is like using Tailwind UI's kind of customized utilities. All right, so yeah, now you can see we've got like a nicer focus style, and then this opens up and it's pretty legit, right? And then it goes back to that when we're done. And now say we wanted to keep that focus style even while it was open, because technically what happens, right, is when we click this button, this list gets focus, so that becomes unfocused. but I could totally see an argument where while it's open, you wanted that to remain focused because like as a kind of a unit, they are still focused. So for that reason, we expose that to you as well. So if you go here, you can do like a v slot equals is focused, and this will tell you that the button is focused. Now, because of the same limitation of slots not being able to be accessed here, we might want to basically grab this, jump down here, throw in a span, move this up, add this class here, and see what I've broken. I didn't add a class. And yeah, okay, that's fine. So we'll also do like a width full here. All right. So now like we can't get any focus stuff on it at all, right? But we could do like focus, outline, none here. Then we could get rid of this stuff. And instead we could replace this with just a dynamic class binding. So we could say class equals is focused. If it's focused, we'll do border blue 300. Ooh, shadow outline blue. And if it's not focused, then we'll just do border gray 300. And then we'll get rid of this one. All right, so now like we get the focus styles back. And, oh, okay, so yeah, we get the focus styles back. Now, if we wanted it to be focused even while it's open, we could just say, okay, well, if it's focused or if it's open, then we'll keep the focus styles. So now they're staying there, right? So you have all the flexibility in the world. Like you could do literally whatever you want. And even here, we have some of this Tailwind UI, the product is paid, but like these components are going to be totally open source and free, and you can use them however you want. You can use them in Tailwind with Tailwind UI. Like we're building them because we need them for Tailwind UI, but we're just going to open source them all, and you can just use them however you want. Just like another project, just like Tailwind is. Okay, what was I saying? I was basically saying, yeah, we've kind of kept this simple, right? It's just like lists of items. But of course, like you could do anything that you wanted in here. Say we wanted to find like, say we wanted to make this a little bit more complicated. We've just got like wrestler names here. Let's like make all these like objects. So we'll do like name, and then let's give each one like a UUID, and maybe we'll do like a avatar for them. Can I just like get this to format everything on separate lines, please? All right. So let's just maybe do like a faker image avatar. So these are obviously not going to be real avatars, and things are going to be broken right now because we've kind of messed some stuff up by changing these to objects. So let's go up here and we'll put we'll display the wrestler's name, and we'll make the selected wrestler a UUID instead. So we'll just say we want to match. That's like Macho Man's going to be like the selected person. Okay. And then up here, where we have selected wrestler, let's make a computed property to find the selected wrestler by their ID. So we'll do computed selected wrestler is going to be this dot wrestlers dot find wrestler this dot selected wrestler ID. We'll rename that triple equals wrestler dot ID. And let's name this to ID. And then that should be back to mostly working. Selected wrestler name. All right, so now we've got like, this is back to working, but now we're using like objects instead. Oh, wait, what a sec. Oh, V model is busted. Selected wrestler ID. We've got errors. What have we done? What's my mistake? Selected wrestler dot name v model selected wrestler ID. Selected wrestler ID. I guess we can look at the console. Avoid using duplicate keys detected. That's why. Okay, we're going to update our keys. Where's our v4? Let's do wrestler.id since now we have a unique identifier. This will be Vue, React, and hopefully Alpine as well to start. And since it's going to be open source, there's a chance that we can explore other stuff too, especially with community help. I write them as Pascal case because I do some React and I do Vue, and that's one thing that's the same in both, or works the same in both. If you look like there's like a Vue style guide, and you look at like multi-word component names, where's it? Component, single file component file name casing. Where's case? Component name casing in templates. In most projects, component names should always be Pascal case in single file components, but kebab case in DOM templates. So they recommend doing Pascal case instead of kebab case. So I do it. Okay, back to this. Looks like we got this working now. Oh, what have we done now? Scroll into view of undefined. Oh, value. We got to update value to be wrestler.id as well. I have no idea when it will be ready. I just started working on it this week, so it'll be ready when it's ready. I'm hoping to create a repository where I have some of the code public as early as possible, but we'll see. I would be very surprised if I could do it with Stencil, but maybe. The code for this is absurd, right? It's all render functions using crazy stuff like views provide inject as context to be able to implicitly share data between all these related components. It's like very advanced code using a lot of very specific Vue APIs, and I don't really know how you could. I'd be very surprised if it was possible to have like a generalized solution that worked for everything. Okay, so this is back to working now that we've made all those updates to IDs. So let's display like their avatars. Again, this is just to demonstrate like how easy it is to do totally custom stuff, right? So let's just do the image source is going to be wrestler.avatar. And we'll just do like H6, W6, rounded, full. And maybe we'll put this in like a div that's got like flex, items, center, space, X4. And we'll wrap the name in a span. And look at that. It's not the actual wrestlers, of course. But now like we have avatars in our dropdown. And we didn't have to like do some crazy configuration option or anything. We just literally write the HTML that we want. Like we have complete control. But again, we didn't have to write the word like aria in here a single time, but all that stuff is totally handled for us. We don't have any like at key up or any of that stuff. It just all beautifully, magically works. It lets you basically build components just like a regular old HTML select component in terms of automatically being accessible, automatically working the way that you'd expect. You don't have to have any of that knowledge yourself, but you still have complete and absolute power in terms of how you structure and style things. So pretty cool. I am pretty excited about this project, and I'm excited about tackling new components and converting it to other stuff. What about a placeholder value? So you mean like if nothing is selected, right? So let's do like selected wrestler ID as null so that there's no wrestler selected. We're going to probably get an error, right? Because we haven't handled it. But then up here, we could just say, we'll do like a span. We'll put the selected wrestler name in it. We'll do another span here. So we'll just say like v if selected wrestler, v else. We'll just say select a wrestler. All right. There's a placeholder value. We choose one, and now like the select a wrestler option is gone, and you can only stick with the other stuff. If we wanted the ability to like get rid of the select a wrestler thing, we could absolutely just add like another list box option at the top. And I'm not going to bother, like, we want it to be styled the same way, right? But whatever, we'll just say like nobody. and we'll say value is null. And I guess we'd have to do like the is selected is active stuff on this too. So it's not going to be perfect in this case, but we can now select like Macho Man and then go back to nobody if we wanted. So you can imagine like what we would do to get this like working in the most bulletproof way possible. Form validation. I mean, it's the same as it would be with a select, right? You have, you just have to write the logic yourself on the client to make sure that like when someone tries to submit the form, if some required field is null, then whatever. I get your point. I guess if you're thinking of like the required attribute, like the HTML stuff, couldn't it be handled by the library? I mean, it already is handled by the library if you want it to be, but I don't want to expose a bunch of configuration options. Like that's the biggest mistake anybody ever makes with all these libraries, is having to pass a bunch of props like list box list, like default placeholder, pop over, corner radius, position, when it's raining. You know, like this is what ends up happening when you try to do everything through options. If you can just yield control of the whole thing to the end user, then they can literally just do whatever they want. So if we wanted to like make this placeholder thing an option, I would just go through to the wrestlers thing and I would just drop in like a name of choose a wrestler, you know, and then like an ID of null. And then for the avatar, I guess we would just do a null avatar probably too. And then we could just go up here and then we could just do like a v if avatar v else. Then we'll just like do the, you know, you could remove some of this duplication, clean it up a little bit. Property or method avatar wrestler.avatar. Okay, so now we have like our null option, you know, and you could say if the value is null, well, like don't show the check mark, right? We could say vshow is selected and wrestler dot ID does not triple equal null. So now choose a wrestler won't get the check mark, but the other ones will. Like this is all userland level configuration now, right? Like we're able to do whatever we want and we didn't have to expose any quirky configuration options or wait for someone to open a GitHub issue and be like, well, I want the icon to change color when I select it. And now I have to think about, what's the API I should expose for that? That's like, I never have to do that because it's just up to you. You have complete control. So yeah. And again, we could make this look completely different, right? We can make this square. We can make this pop up above. We could do whatever we want, literally anything we want. And it's all fully accessible and just like works beautifully. So I love it. This is going to be completely open source, like I said before. I don't know. I've never written any TypeScript, but that would be cool. I would like to learn to do that. And I think that's something that we could get help from the community too. Yeah. So if you wanted to have this like pop up above based on like the screen size, viewport dimensions and position, we can probably come up with a way to like make that easy from within the library. You know, like we could probably give you a slot that kind of tells you where the best place to position it would be, or we could maybe help you do it with Popper.js. But the nice thing is like you could already do it with Popper.js right now. If you just created a Popper instance and you attached it to this listbox list and you also attached it to the listbox button as like the thing that it monitors, Popper will tell you where you're supposed to put it, and then you just use the right classes to put it in that place. Like this component wouldn't actually care about any of that stuff. So anyways, that's kind of what I wanted to demo because I'm super excited about this. And I'm really looking forward to, like, for example, I'll show you kind of like what prompted this. If you look at the old Tailwind UI project itself here, and we wait 45 minutes for it all to compile, because this project we have to compile Tailwind 3 times because of a bunch of stuff. I don't know. It's disastrous, but that's fine. So once this is done, we'll be able to, I'll show you some stuff quickly, and then we'll wrap up. So slow because of so many giant CSS files being compiled. We'll just go wait here anyways. Okay, so it's done. So we have like this secret workbench area that doesn't actually, this route doesn't exist in production, only locally. But you can see like we built all these select menus, right? So here's like a native one, which works great. But then when you get to like these custom ones, I needed to like make these demos work in Tailwind UI when people are browsing them. But if you're looking at like something like this, or you're looking at one like, here's a kind of a cool idea with like the secondary text next to it. Again, super easy to do with the API that we've created here, or like with a status indicator with like different statuses. Super easy to do with the stuff that we've done. Putting the check mark on the left, super easy to do, right? Because you control all the markup. Oh, you know what else is cool? By the way, this is all fully working. Say I wanted to like go to Bret Hart just using my keyboard. I just type Bret Hart. Just works. Macho Man, Jake the Snake, Stone Cold. You don't have to write any of the code to do like the type ahead stuff. It just works magically. So good. It's so exciting. All right. So anyways, all this stuff, like all these Tailwind UI components, the code that we're going to give people is just like not pleasant to work with, because we would just be giving you like basically something like this, like this. You'd have like 18 copies of the same LI. There'd be gross comments above every single one, and you'd have to like go and build a select menu completely from scratch. You'd have to implement all the up, down stuff. And this is like an old Alpine based one from a couple weeks ago, and this doesn't even properly handle all of the ARIA stuff completely. It's good enough for just like getting people to see the states of the component and understand the design, but it's not good enough to put into production, probably, really. It doesn't have the type ahead functionality or any of that stuff. It's pretty good, but it's not fully complete. Whereas like this one, I've really kind of nailed this one, I think. But anyways, I know people wanted these components, but I was kind of nervous about publishing them because people would get them, they'd see them, and they'd think, wow, this is really cool. Then they'd copy it into their project and realize, oh, now I have to spend a week building a custom select menu to make this actually work, and I'm probably going to do it poorly, And that was just like, is that a good thing to do? Does it make sense to give our customers components that like are really like beautiful, but are like deceptively complicated to actually implement? So we decided, you know what, like we're just going to bite the bullet and build these headless UI libraries that we can use to power this stuff, so that when you copy the code, it would look more like what we built, a couple minutes ago. So when you here's kind of what I'm imagining. Imagine you came to here, and this is actually funny because like there's commented out code that kind of already has this in place because I've prototyped this and reverted it so many times. But you're going to come to like Tailwind UI, and now there's going to be 2 tabs. So you go preview, then you go code. Okay, now you've got 2 tabs. There's like the HTML, and then instead of this saying demo, imagine this says like, view. And maybe, probably, definitely, this is going to be like marked like this, to start while we kind of work out the kinks and stuff. But you'll be able to, oh, is my mouse dead? That's sad. You'll be able to, oh, it's back. You'll be able to go and just click like the view experimental thing, and you'll get a component that looks like this, where it's consuming our list box. And it'll just be kind of like this, we'll have a bunch of hard-coded data in it just to seed it up, and then you can delete that stuff and wire it up whenever you want. But this is the plan. We're going to have like Vue, React, Alpine, and that'll be that. We'll probably still offer the HTML one with the comments and stuff, but I think for the interactive ones, most people are probably not going to use that. And so once we have this stuff done, you'll be able to do that. So here's the plan. I want to ship these select menus that we've built because it's been a few weeks since we've published something. And I just haven't wanted to ship them until we've been able to provide the JavaScript stuff. So I think what I'm going to do is ship these. I'd like to say today, but it's unlikely. It'll probably be Monday. So say Monday, we'll ship these custom selects that we've built, these like 5 custom ones and this like basic one. And when we release them, it'll probably just be the HTML and the view version. And the view one will have a big comment at the top, kind of explaining to people like what we're doing. And I'll write an email that explains it too. And then I'm going to start working on a React version of the same thing. And we'll give people access to that. And these will either be in like a repository or they might just start as like a gist of the component for the people who, again, it's experimental, right? Like I'm not ready to like tag it on NPM yet. Because that is kind of restrictive. But for the people who are interested in trying it out, like we'll make it available. So yeah, anyways, that's kind of what I've been working on. I'm really excited about it. I think the API is really slick. I think it makes it really easy to do stuff like this. And it feels like it kind of gives you like superpowers, which is kind of like my favorite thing to do when building developer tools. It's just build stuff that makes people feel like, holy crap, like that was so easy, you know? So I'm really excited to dive into this. We're hiring someone. The job posting is already closed, but we got like almost 900 people applied. And that person's job is basically going to be helping me build these renderless libraries and maintaining them on GitHub. So that's going to be fun. So hopefully we can crank through a lot of that work and get some of this stuff out. I'd like to imagine that by like the end of June, we'll be able to say, here's like a V, 0.1.0 of like both the Vue and the React libraries for the types of components we already have in Tailwind UI. So we'll probably have like dropdowns, the custom selects, maybe the modals. And that'll kind of be that. So thanks for checking out the stream. I will let you know when I have some more cool stuff to show, and keep your eyes peeled for when this stuff drops, because I'd like to get some feedback from people who want to tinker around with it and let me know how it works for them or what edge cases I'm missing. Here's like my to-do list of like stuff that I've been going through, by the way. So like this is all the steps. This is like what's left. I actually did this one already. This one's done. I still have this issue where on load it double renders the component, but it might not be solvable. It's not really a problem, but it's like if I can render it once instead of twice, that seems better. But yeah, it's been fun basically running into little edge cases and then like cranking on them. So that's that. Hope that was informative. Hope you're excited to tinker with some of this stuff. And yeah, thanks, and we'll see you at the next stream. See ya.